Germans first came in, the first thing they did is round up 300 Jewish leaders, my father among them.
In 1949, Chinese regime was controlled by the communists, and I was 12 years old. My father was a banker, but according to communism revolution, the government wanted to abolish two classes, landlord class and bourgeois class. It means either kill of them or put into jail.
We first left Cuba when I was only 2 years old. At that point, my father had been very politically active and was involved with what was the last freely elected government of Cuba. In 1952, that last elected government of Cuba was overthrown by a military dictatorship, and that's what prompted my family to have to leave.
We were not able to leave Vietnam in 1975. We were stuck behind, and it was not a very comfortable position for my father to be in. He was put on trial. It was terrifying. That meant he couldn't have a job, he couldn't leave a house, and the fear was always that they would come and take him away.
Bombs are flying, bullets are flying all over the place, and you don't send your children to school. There is no school. Schools are not open because either the teacher dead or it's very unsafe for them to be in a school.
The situation in Iraq, especially for the people who works in the journalist field, finally I became a target for some groups in Iraq.
It was a very difficult and scary thing. I held onto Mother's hand and we walked out of our little room, and pretty soon we were in the river. This was one way of leaving the ghetto without having to have a written permit. We were in the water reached up to my chin. All of a sudden, shots rang out.
I can identify with all the other women who gang raped, saw their families slaughtered, especially when you were, like me, were married in the opposite ethnic group, where you're caught in that moment of having to choose. How do you choose? Do you choose your husband over your brothers and your sisters? Do you choose your brothers and sisters over your husband?
The government arrested me in 1960, and actually there was no court, no paper. I was just sent to the labor camp, and the police told me I was sentenced to life. I spent 19 years over there.
It didn't really take that long before that talk of the elections and democracy was kind of going side by side with executions of people in the former government, and things began to change. And I think my father, who was a fairly politically astute person, realized that a lot of that hope that he went back with may not get materialized.
So my parents knew that in order for us to have a future, and also my father to be safe, that we had to leave the country. So my parents planned secretly for 3 years with different fishermen who own wooden boats so that, we can escape. And they ran out of money and they couldn't pay for my paternal grandmother, who was 79 years old. My father was the only child, so they left her behind on her own.
I think the hardest part's when you feel you are alone and there is no one to help you, really help you.
You resettle a human being who either is running away from a very unsafe place like I did, or you're resettling someone who's coming from refugee camps, which is another place in between hell and nowhere.
The Hong Kong government was so welcoming. They provided shelter, food, and relative safety. They have organizations like the IRC and the United Nations overseeing the camps. Although we were there for 2.5 years and we share a quarter with hundreds of other families, there were no privacy.
But I remember when they do the food distribution and that they would give these bars of American cheese, and I liked that one, but then they gave all these powdered eggs, which you didn't like, but it's what was available.
In Germany, we were greeted by the United Nations Rehabilitation and Relief Agency. And there, an angelic-looking, beautiful lady with a wonderful smile stopped me. And she said, before you go, take a shower here. And she gave me gifts that were the most precious gifts I received in 5 years. She gave me a cake of soap, toothpaste, a toothbrush, a towel, and that was the beginning of my return to humanity. It took me 3 long years after the war before I was allowed to join my relatives in the United States.
It was quite disorienting. My mother was trapped in the house and scared to death on Halloween because no one explained to us what Halloween was. So all of a sudden she got knocks on the door in the afternoon, and all these children on the other side of the peephole wearing masks and costume. So she was afraid to answer the door for hours.
I was very relieved to be able to go to a safe place. But at the same time, I was very scared. I didn't know what to expect.
I didn't speak a word of English. And I remember one of my few memories of being that young, going in there and just being so overwhelmed by my inability to comprehend or communicate with anyone. I remember standing in front of behind a tree in the playground and just crying.
I built something in Iraq and then lived everything to Jordan and built something to me and lived everything to United States. And sometimes I just ask, what next? I don't know, but maybe there is no next.
I was invited by United States, University of California, Berkeley. I came here as a visiting scholar. Wow, that's a very lucky. I right away turned myself into a free man in the free society. I feel my nail on the ground. God, I'm free, I'm free. I applied to political asylum. When I walked in the office, I saw big photos. Who is that? Einstein. And there's one sentence there. Do you know this guy was a refugee? I'm very proud I've become a refugee.
Since I came to United States, I make great relationships with the people here. Maybe that's the most thing I really am proud of.
I can't overstate how important it is for the United States to continue to admit refugees and provide them the protection that they need. It's important to us, I think, as a country and as a people, because it's part of our identity and who we are as a country, as a people, to offer freedom and protection.
Best thing to say to a refugee who first arrived here is to welcome home.